All right, let's dive into one of the most mind-bending ideas you'll probably ever hear, inspired by Michael Talbot's incredible book, The Holographic Universe. It's a theory that says everything you think is real, the chair you're sitting on, the air you're breathing, might just be a beautifully complex illusion. So, you ready to question, well, everything? So, let me just ask you this straight up. Is the solid, tangible world around you just a projection? A fantastically detailed hologram? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but this is an idea that two absolutely brilliant scientists, working from completely opposite ends of science, both stumbled upon. Let's see how they got there. But before we go any further, what actually is a hologram? It's way more than just a 3D image. See, it's made using lasers, and here's the part that you have to remember because it's the key to this whole theory. Every single piece of a holographic film, no matter how tiny you break it, contains the entire image. The whole is in every part. Got it? Good. Now, what's so wild about this theory is who came up with it. It wasn't one person in a lab. You've got Karl Pribram, a neuroscientist obsessed with figuring out how our brains can store a lifetime of memories. And then you have David Bohm, a physicist who worked with Einstein, trying to understand the deepest fabric of the cosmos. They started worlds apart, but their research led them to the exact same unbelievable conclusion. So let's start inside our own heads, right? How does this 3-pound squishy organ manage to store decades of memories, feelings, and skills? For a long, long time, the traditional explanation it just didn't work. The old idea was pretty simple. Memories were stored in specific spots, kind of like files in a filing cabinet. But experiments just blew that theory apart. A researcher named Carl Lashley taught rats to run mazes, then removed different parts of their brains. And guess what? They could still run the mazes. So Pribram came along and said, what if we're looking at it all wrong? What if memories aren't in one place? What if they're smeared out across the whole brain? And boom, that's where the hologram comes in. This quote says it all. You cut a hologram of an apple in half, you don't get two halves of an apple. You get two whole, complete apples, just maybe a little fuzzier. Pribram thought, that's it. That's how memory works. It can survive damage because the memory is everywhere at once. And once you start thinking about the brain this way, so many mysteries just click. How does it store so much information? Well, holograms are famous for their incredible storage density. How does one smell instantly bring back a flood of childhood memories? That's how holograms work, linking everything together. And of course, it perfectly explains how Lashley's rats could still remember the maze. Okay, stay with me, because if the brain is processing reality like a hologram, it opens up a whole new can of worms, like the connection between the mind and the body. If your brain treats a vivid mental image the same way it treats information from your eyes and ears, could your thoughts actually physically change your body? Let me tell you about a man named Frank. He gets diagnosed with terminal throat cancer, and the prognosis is absolutely terrible. His doctors give him less than a year to live. Basically, they send him to a doctor named O. Carl Simonton as a last resort, who is trying out these new mental imagery techniques. So Frank started this daily ritual. He'd visualize his radiation treatment as a stream of tiny energy bullets just blasting his cancer cells to bits. And then he'd imagine his own immune system, his white blood cells, as a powerful army swarming in to clean up the mess and carry the dead cancer cells away. And the result of all this? 2 months. In just 2 months, Frank's cancer had completely disappeared, vanished. His doctors were floored. It was like his brain took the imaginary battle so seriously that it made his body go out and win it for real. You know, Frank's story isn't just some freak anomaly. The holographic model could actually provide a way to understand all sorts of bizarre mind-body puzzles. The placebo effect, right? Where a sugar pill can heal you just because you believe it will. Or multiple personality disorder, where one personality can be allergic to strawberries, but another in the same body isn't. Think about acupuncture, where a point on your foot can affect your whole body. In every case, it's like the part contains a map of the whole. So, if our minds can interact with our bodies in this crazy, holographic way, what does that imply about the universe our minds are living in? Well, this is where it gets really big. Because while Pribram was studying the brain, David Bohm was studying the cosmos, and he arrived at the same shocking idea. It's not just our brains. The entire universe might be a hologram. Bohm suggested that reality has 2 levels. The first is what he called the explicate order. That's easy. It's the world we see. It's reality unfolded, where things look separate. A tree is a tree, a car is a car, and you are you. There's space, there's time. It's the world as it appears to be. But, Bohm said, underneath that surface is a much deeper level, the implicate order. This is a hidden dimension where everything is enfolded into everything else, where it's all one interconnected whole. His favorite analogy was stirring a drop of ink into a jar of glycerin. The ink seems to disappear, right? But it's not gone. It's just been folded into the entire mixture. Bohm believed our universe of separate objects is just like that ink, unfolded from a much deeper, unified source. And this quote just nails the idea perfectly. Our physical world, the one we live in, isn't separate from this deeper cosmic energy field. It's just a ripple, a temporary pattern on its surface that appears for a little while before folding back into the whole. So, if our brains are holographic decoders and the universe is the hologram being decoded, what does that actually mean for us? What does it say about life, death, and our very perception of time? Well, for starters, it means what we call reality isn't as objective as we think. Neurophysiologists have actually found that less than half of our perception comes directly from our senses. More than half of what we experience is actually constructed by our brain, based on our memories and expectations. Our brains aren't just windows looking out at the world. They're actively building the world we see. And that leads to a really profound idea. In this kind of universe, space and time aren't fundamental things that exist out there. No, they are constructs. They're tools that our consciousness uses to decode the frequencies from that deeper implicate order and make sense of them. Even location itself is basically an illusion. And this could give us a totally new way of looking at phenomena like near-death experiences. All over the world, people report the same things. Leaving their body, going through a tunnel, seeing a beautiful light, and then experiencing their entire life all at once. Could that be a glimpse of what happens when consciousness slips out of the physical world, the explicate order, and experiences the timeless, spaceless reality of the hologram? So, after all that, what are we supposed to take away from this? It really boils down to three huge ideas. First, we are all deeply, fundamentally interconnected. The feeling of being separate is an illusion. Second, our consciousness isn't just a bystander watching the universe go by, it's an active player helping to shape reality. And third, the universe isn't just out there, it's also in here. Like that piece of a hologram, each of us contains the whole picture. I think this quote puts it beautifully. This theory isn't about having a neat answer to everything. It's about realizing that we might just be toddlers, just starting to figure out the true nature of reality. Just learning how to navigate an existence that's infinitely bigger and more mysterious than we ever thought possible. And so that has to leave us with one final, very powerful question. If this model is even a little bit true, if our beliefs and our shared consciousness actually help build the world we experience, then what kind of reality are we going to choose to create together?